Good afternoon and good morning to those of you that have joined us from abroad today. And we're just going to leave it for a few minutes or a minute or so just to let you all join and settle in. So this is always the longest minute of the webinar while you're waiting for people to join us. So once again, thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait for a few more seconds for those of you that are joining us. Tom, could you just put it back onto the other slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so let's start, shall we? So thank you, as I said, for joining us today. We are running our webinar today with Payslip. So, it's a fantastic opportunity to be working with Payslip today. And we're talking about a really important subject, how to deliver global data-driven insights for strategic decision-making. I think this is such an important subject for payroll people and especially global payroll industry. So before we start, let's just go over to the housekeeping. And we'll run through what we need to know on the housekeeping. So the webinar is recorded live and it will be available after the event, and also the slides as well. We would like to keep this as an interactive session. So if you do have any questions, can you please put the questions in the Q&A section? And we will also be running a poll. So it'd be great to have you get involved in that poll as well. So let's go over to the speakers today. So over to you, Tom. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Melanie. My name is Tom Bulgin, and I'm one of the global account directors at Payslip. For those of you that might not be aware of Payslip, Payslip provides automation and integration technology that delivers standardized global payroll management to multinational employers. The technology integrates with your HCM or your ERP systems, automating your existing payroll processes, standardizing your existing payroll data, and in the interest of full disclosure, consolidating payroll reporting. So ultimately, companies can centrally manage their existing global payroll operations with visibility, control, and governance while scaling easily into new countries. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Tom. And over to you, Mary. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Melody. So I'm Mary Holland. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Payslip. And I actually work in the US. So we have a global presentation today with Tom being from the UK.
Thank you, Mary. And I think we're going to start off with a poll. So let's launch the poll. So the question is, what is your organisation level of satisfaction? Are you satisfied with the level of global payroll reporting you currently have access to? So I'm just going to launch the poll. Can you all see that?
Yes, Melody, I see it on our side.
Excellent. Okay, so I always have a figure that I like to try and get to. So we'll give everyone a few seconds to be able to do that. Have you got, do you know, or have you any thoughts on what you think might be the highest result for this?
Well, Melanie, I think everybody wants to be satisfied, but I think it's somewhat because there might be limitations depending on how much time their organization has spent on reporting. But as we all know, it's a strategic direction that everyone's looking at. Data is important. So it'll be interesting to see what the audience shares with this one.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not dissatisfied, but we can provide some insights in the webinar to help them be not dissatisfied.
Definitely. Well, we'll just give it a few more seconds. There's a couple of you that haven't voted. So if you just want to quickly jump on now, then I'll end the poll. Okay, I'm going to, oh, thank you very much to that person. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So can you see the results, Mary?
Yes, I can. And so very interesting that the somewhat satisfied was my guess, and we were at 46% of the attendees in the somewhat satisfied. So that is that's exactly where I would see as we talk to payroll leaders and HR leaders. Satisfied is 27%, so that's excellent. But we do have a group that's dissatisfied, which is 13%. So definitely it's not, their organization has some need to improve on reporting. So I think Tom's insights today will definitely help the dissatisfied, and we'll be able to help the somewhat satisfied to become satisfied and moved up. So thank you on that one, Melanie.
Okay. Over to you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Melanie. So we're going to follow this agenda for today's session. Firstly, looking at why the need for reporting in global payroll. Then who needs it? Who are the stakeholders? Then we'll look at the challenges that make it hard to deliver this capability. I'll then pass over to Mary for some real life examples of where payroll reporting has delivered insights to different business units. Then we'll discuss some best practices we've garnered from working with many of our existing clients. And after that, summarize the key benefits that reporting brings. So hopefully that'll leave us 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And as Melanie says, do please submit your questions during the presentation as the questions come into your mind, and we'll address them at the end. So I'm going to start with a statistic. 55% of CFOs place reporting, better or faster reporting, in their top 5 priorities for 2021. That's a statistic that came back from a survey done by NetSuite recently. So why is reporting so important to them? Apologies for that. Companies have been going through digital transformation in many areas of the enterprise for a number of years now, deploying omni-channel customer engagement solutions to improve customer experience, for example, moving to a digital or mobile first approach, making sure they're app enabled, deploying RPA and AI tools in middle and back office, making sure to improve operating efficiencies, ensuring they have an e-commerce capability, integrating core systems and moving internal and customer data to the cloud. Those are some of the transformations that have been underway, and the nature and prioritization of those projects is effectively informed by data-driven insights. And that insight is surfaced from previously inaccessible data sets. But through systems integration and cloud enablement, interrogation of those data sets is now possible. For the C-suite, those data sets are effectively available and consumed via a range of reports from which they're able to surface that previously unseen insight. So it's no surprise that CFOs want enhanced reporting to further inform their strategic thinking and provide direction to those ongoing transformations. It's absolutely critical that the key decisions they make for the future well-being of the organization and the employees are supported with solid evidence from hard data, which is embedded in those reports. And another statistic, if I may, from Deloitte this time, 50 to 60% of the average Fortune 500 company's annual spend is on payroll. Payroll costs are the single largest expense for most companies. But historically, has payroll data been mined in the way that other company data sets have been mined to deliver insights for the C-suite? I think it's fair to say that the answer is not so much. But the realization is now there that payroll data, employee cost data, contains extremely valuable insights, as you would rightly expect in relation to the largest annual expense the company faces. I'll share with you a quick story. I recently met with the head of global payroll at a large US technology company, 20,000 employees, 40 countries. He's been in payroll for over 25 years. He was responsible for payroll of over 60,000 employees in his previous company. And he said to me, Tom, payroll departments in most companies are like Rodney Dangerfield. Now, I love our American cousins dearly, but I have to say at that moment, I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. So he explained that Rodney was an actor or comedian whose catchphrase was, I don't get no respect at all. And then I understood what he meant. What he was saying was that as you look at those transformations, they've been taking place largely around the payroll department, but not in the payroll department itself. Despite managing data that describes over 50% of the company's annual spend, many payroll departments have been overlooked in terms of transformation. and the technologies and capabilities to support them. But that is changing. Payroll departments around the world have been under tremendous pressure due to COVID during the last 12 months. And putting the human tragedy to one side for a moment, if we can, sudden dramatic changes in workforce structure, implementation of furlough schemes, reduced working hours have all been handled by payroll teams working from home, often with limited access to systems and resources, who have really stepped up across the board to support their fellow workers and ensure to the absolute best of their ability that everyone is paid accurately and on time. Payroll teams have been some of the real heroes in the corporate world over the last 12 months. And the realization is now apparent in many companies that payroll is no longer primarily an administrative function, but is one that is central to the well-being of any company and its employees and is critical to its longevity. And in that, it offers potential strategic advantages over competitor firms, as with the right tools, it can provide extremely valuable insight into the workforce directly to the C-suite, supporting those senior execs as they shape the future direction of the organization. But that can only be done with a robust supporting payroll infrastructure, which is why we're now seeing finally more transformation taking place in global payroll teams as they respond to the CFO's demands for better and faster reporting. So what are these new reporting requirements that payroll departments are being challenged to deliver? Well, firstly, they need to provide a complete picture of the payroll landscape within the organization. It can be a real challenge to gather a true representation of the state of payroll within a multi-country organization, whether it's consolidated up to a global level or broken down into regional payroll costs, but still standardized into a format that allows for direct comparison between payrolls in different countries. Within that, getting clarity on the true cost of labor is crucial. So having easy and complete access to all of the different employer costs that apply in different countries around the world, and having this data again presented in a format that allows for direct comparison between regions or countries. So, for example, if we're looking at global pension contributions for the company, being able to easily compare superannuation costs as they appear in Australia to the ER pension cost item on a UK payslip. That's a challenge. Those local data points need to be standardized and presented in a single reporting field and currency of pension costs in pound sterling in this example, to provide a consistent global perspective. So there's integration and automation work that needs to be done to achieve that effectively. The reports need to support business continuity planning. The recent tragic events around the pandemic highlight this. Overnight, companies have gone from strong balance sheet positions to suddenly struggling to survive. And so the need to understand quickly where they're going to be able to affect significant change whilst minimizing disruption to working practices or client support activity is critical. Furlough schemes, reduced working hours, all complicate matters. So where can the company have the biggest impact on cost saving? Dynamic, flexible, and timely payroll reporting will enable this emergency decision making. And increasingly providing this detail in real time is vital for obvious reasons under a BCP scenario, but also in business on a more general scale. The frequency with which insights are generated enables companies to be more agile in their decision making. This is especially important in times of dramatic change or growth, where senior execs are shaping the trajectory of the organization, looking at M&A activity or divestitures. Where should they be hiring? What is the true cost of employment in different regions? Where to invest for growth? Real-time access to the reports supports this decision-making. And with all of that, payroll reporting forms a cornerstone of effective workforce management. Those dynamic, real-time reports become the single source of truth for all aspects of employee costs across the organization. So what are the challenges? Why isn't this something that is easily attainable by all companies? Well, many companies are operating a multi-vendor payroll landscape. Not only operationally is this a challenge to manage effectively and efficiently, especially as companies are scaling up, but the data is exchanged through a variety of channels, each one unique to the payroll partner and in multiple different formats, different currencies, languages, and containing all sorts of different tax elements. The gross to net data that's returned by the independent partners contains all this unstructured data, and it proves exceedingly challenging to consolidate this data into a single consistent format for easy consumption by senior execs. So there's a lack of standardization that goes hand in hand with a multi-partner landscape. The different pay and tax elements, different currencies, languages, and so on, they're all very hard to prepare and present to senior execs in easily understandable format. Limited data access presents problems. Are you reliant on your partners to produce the relevant data? Often there's a lack of self-serve reporting functionality. Requests are submitted by email, and responses could take a number of days to come back. With an unnecessary number of links in the chain, stakeholders and senior execs are then left waiting too long for the insights they need to support their strategic decision-making. Even when there is a degree of reporting available from your vendors, those reports may be limited in the detail and the data they contain. Reporting limitations can mean there's no country comparison data, no consolidated regional or entity view, no degree of customization or dynamic filtering options to allow you to obtain the type of reports you really need. This lack of control and reliance on partners to deliver the required report formats leaves employers at the mercy of reporting capabilities of their outsourced suppliers. It frustrates and compromises the payroll department's ability to support the business with insight generation. Similarly, a lack of self-serve reporting means timing is always a challenge. Those extra links in the chain limit the payroll team's ability to adopt an agile approach to payroll reporting. And with data coming from different sources at different times, this can potentially limit the value of consolidated global reports, where the country-specific components of which may not have been generated actually at the same point in time. And finally, a disjointed reporting infrastructure raises compliance problems. It limits the organization's ability to show a clear and transparent audit trail of all activity taking place within the payroll. The latest payroll reporting systems, because all the data is held within a single repository, irrespective of whether that data has originated from a network of independent payroll providers, means full transparency is available in a range of audit-related reports in real time. Strengthening your compliance position, especially useful when looking at things like the SOX framework, for example. So why the need for global reporting? Well, transparency for one thing. It enables key stakeholders to immediately understand the payroll landscape within the organization, see changes in those costs over time, understand in an instant what's the true cost of employment for the business globally across the different business units. Answer questions like, what is the total pension liability of the organization at any one time? How much is our global sales force costing us? What are the employer costs associated with those employees? Is there any gender bias perhaps for employees in similar roles across the organization? Where do we need to quickly make workforce changes to enhance our survival chances when the business is threatened under BCP conditions? Making sense of it all with consolidated global analysis in quick, agile, and flexible fashion is key. Transparency into your cost base, especially considering this is the organization's single largest expense in most instances, is critical for a modern business. Cost management is better informed with accurate global payroll reporting. So drilling down into the global data set to reveal insights at entity, regional, country, and business unit level. what is the payroll expenditure on a particular business unit when compared alongside other reports the senior execs will have received from different teams regarding performance for revenue generation, say, or from efficiencies gained in the operations function. Global payroll reports provide context to so much of the other data that's already available to the C-suite. That context is hugely valuable. In addition, this context also enhances the value of the other data sets. So, for example, perhaps a report showing revenue from new business generated by the enterprise sales team. And so further drives informed decision-making. And being able to easily drill down from a global to a local level can help with comparative analysis between the different teams. Taking that sales team analogy further, answering the question, how is the EMEA enterprise sales team performing based on total cost of employment versus the APAC team? So this comparison of data with real context and over time then provides an accurate backstory that can be used to inform the trajectory of the forward-looking forecasts and the direction of the associated strategic decision-making. And this is what the C-suite now demands: timely, accurate, consolidated global payroll data in standardized format with the ability to drill down into regional and country-specific data sets with context to support informed decision-making, shape forward-looking strategy, and ultimately drive ongoing business transformation. Now, I'm going to hand over to Mary, who's going to take us through a series of real-life case studies where payroll reporting delivered valuable insights to a number of different business units. So, Mary, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. So first, I'm going to talk about the payroll needs for finance. So all of the reports that we have displayed on our slide here are important reports for the finance team. They are one of our key stakeholders as global leaders that we need to make sure they have information to be able to do their job and protect and move the company forward. As Tom shared, the C-suite is looking for this information to make valuable decisions moving forward. In what location should I put employees in? What is the cost of the business in a certain location? Is there a lower cost location that I can move resources to? And with our mobile environment today, they also are going to have to look at where are people working, and is there additional cost in one particular location over another? So the employer cost is huge. We also know that audit and trend reports give us history of what's happened in the past, now, and in the future, so we can do projections. And then the simple report, if we look at a headcount report, that may seem, why is that important? In some organizations, we have multiple systems. We don't have a system of record for our employees. So you may be combining multiple reports from multiple systems to get a true headcount of the organization, which is important for statutory reporting and also for the organization to see their growth and pattern of what's happening. So let me share with one of our clients their challenge that they had, and they reached out to us and used our system, and I'll share a little bit about their footprint. They were a EMEA headquartered company. They were in 20 plus countries. The reason that they needed reporting and they used our reporting was they needed to get a forecast report and break down all of the components in each of the locations that were salary compensations, the compensations related for employer contributions. So they went through a project to consolidate all of their elements. That means tax and pay elements into subcategories. And from doing that standardization, it didn't matter what it was called in China, what salary was called in China, or the bonus was called in China. They had local language and they also had English, and they brought it to a subcategory. By bringing it to a subcategory, they were able to look across the 20 countries and see what the expenses were by subcategory. What was the cost of salary, the true cost of salary? What was the true cost of overtime? And then bonus programs and benefit programs. and of course the employer expenses. Why they were using this report, they took the report and then they forecasted out 1, 2, and 3 years to determine how many employees they were going to need and what was the cost. They then used the information to go out to investors for funding. They were also forecasting what they would look like in 2021 when COVID hit. And so in this particular organization, they were majorly impacted with COVID. So they were able to use their report to look at the true cost, look at what was going on, the number of employees, and they did have to downsize. So this information served two purposes for them. One was to go out to investment, but the second was they had it available to start to look at what locations they were going to downsize in, what was the cost, and who they could furlough in some countries and others who they could keep. So it was a definite example of the benefits of reporting. In another organization, just getting the cost for HR is important. So we look at HR. HR has many needs. They are once again a key stakeholder for us in global payroll. We need to look at the things that are important to them. So remember, they're running many employee programs for us. They have a lot of people joining, they have a lot of people leaving. Getting that reporting and information is important to them. So my next example is in one of our clients. We're running pension programs in the UK. The benefits program was run by HR, and during the kind of structure and process, the client realized that they did not have a pension report to provide to the pension provider, and the pension provider didn't ask for it for a period of time, and then all of a sudden it was brought to the attention that they weren't making pension payments, and so it came up as a issue. So the organization quickly pulled the pension information together, was able to then provide the last 6 months of pension programs, and then set up a standard report that could be run and then was part of their standardization workflow process moving forward. So those are an example of what can happen with headcounts. The other thing with headcounts is if you have expats or global mobility employees, the HR department needs to know where they are. So you need to have reports of where they are located and what is the true cost for that particular employee when we're moving from country to country, and what is the employer cost or tax we might have to pay. And payroll has that information. Why it's important? So that they can share that information with the business leadership to be able to let them know what the true cost of moving an employee from A to B is, and what the cost and benefits will be for a new location. So it's important to make sure that we recognize that we have different partners. The next partner that we actually have is actually the business that's going to have some questions. And the business is managing their business in a certain area. It could be the engineering team, it could be the marketing team or the sales team. They're tasked to make sure that they're on budget and use the best of their resources and funding that they have wisely. So things like the cost of overtime is really important if you're in a business that has a lot of overtime. What are the work rules around that particular country? What is that true cost? Looking at what the employers have to pay in a certain location. A country like France, it could be 40 or 50% of employer cost, which is a big impact if you have a major operations in France. My next example is a company that was really actually in the agricultural business. They had many locations, and in the locations that they had a lot of workers that were working overtime. The client was not aware of the true cost of overtime. They didn't realize that there was additional hours that was after a certain number of hours, they had to pay time and a half. And on some days, weekends and holidays, they might have to pay double or triple time. So the client was unaware of this. They ran a report that looked at overtime because they had looked at the subcategory of overtime. By looking at that overtime column, they saw how much overtime they were paying. And the business went to the senior leadership and said, this is our total overtime cost. It would be better for us to hire more employees than having our employees working overtime. And then long term, they ended up hiring more employees. They had better employee engagement because we didn't have their workers working additional overtime hours. So looking at that can be valuable depending on your organization. And we also know globally, we have rules and regulations on the number of hours employees can work. So just having an idea of how many hours, what's the cost of overtime is invaluable to the organization and the business. So as a global payroll department, we have many reporting needs, right? We have, as leaders in the organization, we need to know what's going on in any country that we're doing business in, right? We need to be able to know what's happening in the workflow. We can run workflow reports to make sure that the providers that we're using are delivering their services on time. Are our teams delivering those on time? So do we have audit reports that show that? Do we have audit reports that says who has access to the system and who made that change? Those are important questions that come up. We have to think about always being audit ready. So looking at being audit ready, meaning whenever a tax agency comes in or an internal audit comes in, we have the reports available to be able to run them and provide them. The variance reports help us proof and make sure that we've got everything correct, right? If our salary compensation changes from month to month, we definitely can look at the variance report to see why before we commit the payroll for payment. And then, of course, as we mentioned, having that total cost of pay is going to be invaluable to the organization, but these are information that we can share with senior leadership. We can share it with our mergers and acquisition teams. We can share it with the business. And of course, our finance teams partnering with them are going to be invaluable. So a couple examples of how this has happened with some of our clients is they have taken the audit ready reports and they've taken a look at who in their organization is delivering the information late to the payroll teams, because they have a report that says when it was delivered and the date, and they can then make sure that everybody is delivering on time. On the other side, another client used this same report to find out that the ICP was always late, and they could then have a conversation with the vendor against their SLAs to prove that that was actually happening. The change reports are invaluable to say who changed the item. So if someone comes back to you and says, my bank account changed, how did it actually happen? Who made that change? It could be the employee themselves, or it could be somebody else that was given information and something was typed in correctly if the banking was not done correctly. So all of these reports are invaluable. And Tom is going to go on to the next slide to talk about some more items to make sure that how you can achieve the goals.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mary. Really interesting there to hear the importance of reporting and how having a good transparency around the true cost of employment helps companies with selecting workforces or choosing which regions to operate in and expand into, and indeed how to hire those employees, whether they should be on permanent employment contracts or whether you can expand the overtime for your existing workforce. So good stuff. So I'm going to now speak about how you can go about making this global reporting a reality in your business. From conversations with many of our clients, we've put together a suggested list here of best practices that should provide some structure on how to go about delivering the reporting capability that's going to support your C-suite and ensure that you're future-proofed against changes in reporting demands down the line. So the first thing is to review your currently available reports. What reports do you have access to today, and how readily available are those reports? Are they available through a dynamic and flexible self-serve technology platform, or are they only available on request from a third-party vendor or payroll partner? With that, what is the associated delays in procuring those reports? If you've developed in-house tools, what level of reporting and flexibility do they provide? to get a really clear picture of the breadth and timeliness of your existing payroll reporting capabilities. With that information, you can then engage stakeholders in the business to find out exactly what type of reports they need. What are the top 3 or top 5 reports they need on a regular basis? What base reporting currency do they require? What frequency do they need these reports in? Do they need regional and country or entity-specific reports? And what standardization taxonomy do they need built into them? Gather as much information about their reporting needs as possible. That will then inform you of the gap that you need to bridge. It's also important to identify other projects within the business that may also be undergoing review within HR or finance. So is there a broader strategic effort underway to look at moving away perhaps from a network of independent payroll providers with the idea of potentially outsourcing your global payroll function to a single globally managed service provider? Find out what is driving that effort. Perhaps this comes partly from a lack of global reporting capability, coupled with the expansion of the company, getting to a point where there is just too many separate payroll providers to manage effectively from an operational perspective. And if that's the case, then consider whether there may be pure technology solutions available now that will allow you to continue to manage your existing network of independent providers, but much more effectively and more efficiently without having to go to an expensive managed service provider, and will also deliver the specialist reporting tools needed to address the identified reporting gap. So in that way, a new project to enhance your payroll reporting could actually be integrated with an existing project to improve the management of your existing partner network. So make sure you're talking to all of the senior stakeholders in HR, in finance, in payroll, in IT, strategy even, to be fully aware of the other projects that you could tie into. And the technology solution that ultimately resolves your reporting challenge could itself bring about a revision in your strategic thinking related to your payroll function on a broader level. You'll also need to review your in-house IT capability. So can it deliver on any of these requirements? Unlikely in terms of partner management, but potentially there may have been an appetite in the past with a lack of technology solutions available in the market at that time to build certain reporting capabilities in-house. If that's the case, there's likely to be stakeholders with vested interests and entrenched positions in the business, which will require a tactful discussion around buy versus build. You need to identify those stakeholders early in the process and address their concerns. Inevitably, specialist third-party technology matures to a point where the buy argument wins for specialist solution providers versus the heavy ongoing cost of development and upkeep of in-house built solutions and the various workarounds that might be in place today. Have that conversation early in the process. And at this point, you're now able to research current and potentially new payroll providers plus new technology vendor capabilities. Can they bridge the gap for you? Can they provide any level of service you need in terms of timeliness of reports? So are they in real time? What's the availability of those reports? Are they self-serve or do you have to request them? How flexible and dynamic is their offering? You'll need this flexibility to future-proof your selected solution provider, as there will be new market practices, new dynamics, and new reporting requirements that emerge outside of the original scope of the stakeholder requirements. Make a full and thorough assessment of your vendor marketplace. And again, keep in mind other projects that may already be in motion within the organization to accelerate your desired outcome. If you've done a thorough job during that research phase, then you should be in a strong position to identify the vendors or partners that meet these requirements. And once you've done that, then the fun stuff begins. Ask for demos, and test the reporting modules from the identified technology vendors or payroll partners. And finally, once you're satisfied they can deliver on your needs, you're in a position to build the business case. So looking at time saved in report creation, looking at future efficiency gains when supporting growth of the partner network with the same headcount within your payroll department, particularly if you're tying in with a broader effort to leverage technology to bring about operational excellence within your payroll function, quantifying resource and labor saved, especially if you're moving away from a build to a buy approach and reducing or minimizing IT resource drain, and not to forget the value to the business of the insights that are generated. So ultimately, what are the benefits you can expect from a fully automated and globally consolidated payroll reporting capability? Well, firstly, you immediately have the visibility into employee costs that was previously challenging to obtain. That transparency to understand workforce costs and drill down, if needed, into regional specifics, but maintaining a predefined level of standardization within the data sets, irrespective of which payroll provider has supplied. That enables you to immediately compare data between different countries, different business entities, and so on. These reports become your single source of truth for the true cost of labor across the enterprise, as Mary was saying. Real-time reporting allows you to respond to C-suite in flexible, agile, and timely fashion, presenting that data in accurate, concise, and easily understood visualizations to enable those senior execs to make the right decisions for the organization. As we've heard from Mary as well, access to organized payroll data in consolidated and standardized format unlocks powerful strategic insights and supports accurate forecasting in finance, HR, payroll operations, and helps drive the ongoing transformation and growth of the company. From insight generation and the ability to forecast effectively comes improved workforce management, where employee costs can be monitored and controlled with much greater discipline, opportunities for investment and expansion identified, and operational efficiencies delivered. This is particularly important as we now see an increase in working from anywhere, from the working from anywhere culture that companies are adopting in the wake of the COVID crisis. And finally, your compliance capability benefits considerably as clear audit trails are tracked and recorded. All data remains in the reporting system instead of being held remotely by a disparate network of payroll partners. All activity is date and time stamped in the system. There's no fishing around in constantly revised spreadsheets and endless email chains looking for key moments when data was revised or changed. All of that activity can be quickly and transparently presented in the relevant report. This has obvious and considerable benefits when you're looking at things like SOX compliance, for example. So that, I hope you found that interesting, and that we prompted you to ask questions of yourselves about your current reporting arrangements, where you need to get to in the future, and perhaps provided some ideas about how you'll actually get there. It's hard to gauge an audience response in a webinar, but hopefully this Q&A session will tell us if we've done a reasonable job. So Melanie, I believe, back over to you.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, thank you very much. That's very interesting. So if people do have any questions, please feel free to add the questions to the Q&A box, but we do have a couple of questions here. So as more and more organisations outsource their payroll, how does that impact reporting and reporting consolidation? Mary, over to you.
Okay, so thank you. So great question. So first of all, really, when you start to outsource, one of the key challenges that you have is what is the reporting capabilities that the outsourcer has. So one of the things, you have to think about, are you going to have multiple outsourcers, or are you going to try to go to one, or are you trying to go to one per region? in those particular situations, you're going to need to look at how easy it is to get the reports. As Tom mentioned, the real-time reporting. Can you put things, can you consolidate items in subcategories? Do you have the ability to have things in English and local language? Because we know local language is used in many, many countries, and that is the language that we have to use. So those are things to think about. So that is a challenge. That is something on your RFP that you want to take a look at. I would be taking a look at, is there a technology solution that you can choose your providers? And Payslip is one of those technology solutions where you have the ability to outsource to whoever you want to outsource to. And then you're able to then use the system for reporting purposes. So it does not matter. The consolidation and the standardization of the processes will then bring everything, every report or gross to net into Payslip. You then have the ability to use the reporting module then that will take the data into any place that you want. It can be at the micro level, which is at the employee level, bring it up to a regional level, country level, and then bring it up to a global level. And at that point, you also have the ability to choose whatever currency that you want to use. You have the ability to bring it to euros or bring it to USD or whatever is actually needed. It also gives you the ability to forecast if there's a big exchange rate fluctuation in a particular country. You can do the forecast of what that might look like in your organization so that you know what the true cost would be with a huge swing in exchange rate. So that's important information that the finance team would definitely like to be shared.
And can I just add to that as well, Mary? I would say don't just assume just because you're potentially going to be partnering with an organization that's going to provide you a globally managed service to do a great job on the payroll piece. Don't assume automatically that they have that reporting capability in-house. We have seen a number of instances, funnily enough, recently, where large global enterprises are using or have outsourced to a number of different managed service providers. And the reporting capability is surprisingly lacking from those managed service providers. So don't make that assumption. Do check and double check on the ability that they have. And of course, if they haven't, give Mary a call, give me a call, and we'll chat to you in more detail.
Well, and Tom mentioned that in one of your checklists is if you have special reports and you want to demo what that report looks like, have the client show you that report in their system so that you're actually maybe even doing the work, running the report, so you see it real time, so you know that it's going to meet your needs. And that is an important thing when you have going out to RFP. Prepare your list of items that you need because each of your organizations has special needs, and making sure that you're going to get those special needs. Just seeing a demo that says you can drag it or drop it to here doesn't always work when you actually get into the live system. So making sure it's reporting is number one item that really needs to pay a lot of attention to when you're working and making selection with your partners.
Thanks very much, Mary. We do have another question. So how to manage users' access rights? Isn't it too complex to ensure authorized people are accessing only the reports they're allowed to access? Who would be happy to answer that question?
So I'll be happy to start on that, and Tom probably can provide some insights too. So in our particular technology, the access rights are based on the role that you've been assigned. So really, it's important to have defined roles when you're looking for vendors or partners to work with. So the role drives what I'm able to see and view, and if I can actually do edits to that particular information. So that information, when you're using the system, should roll into your reporting capabilities. So do I have the ability to run the global report for all countries across the globe? Or am I only required or have the ability based on my role to just see the information in the UK? And we do know that with GDPR, this is very, very important that you have a business defined why you're running reports, who has access to information. So you do have to spend time to make sure you have the correct person. The system should have that ability, and it should be able to deliver the correct information and who should see that information. Do you need to see employee information? In some cases, you don't need to see the employee information, you just need totals. So can your system just show the totals? So what is available needs to be defined, what you need, and who has the rights to see that. And that's a business decision that should be managed in your organization. As global leaders, we cannot just be asked for numerous reports, and who makes a decision if that person should see that information or not? Do you have somebody as a governing board that you could submit the request to and they say, no, that person shouldn't see that information? So just remember that's something that should be well managed. I did work in an organization where at one point we had moved systems and somebody had created a report, and the report was given to the financial analyst team, and that report had compensation for all employees. The controller then asked me if I knew what was going on or why that report was given to them. And I said I didn't even know the report was generated. It was generated through IT. And what happened was, since this person could see everybody else's salaries, he was comparing other people that were on his team. The amount of work he was doing was more than them. So it became a real issue. So that organization then decided, okay, anything related to payroll, we have to have approval. And so at that time, I was a global owner. So I was the one that was approving them. Anything that was in doubt, I would then go to the director of finance and they would make the decision. So we knew exactly who got those reports, and we kept logs so that we were aware. So Tom, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing that's, again, interesting from sort of recent experiences, and it's hard to know the role or the organization that these companies, these questions are coming from. But one particular space that I'm sure everyone's aware of has been under real growth is the employer of record space. So again, looking at roles and rights within the technology platform that you're potentially considering accessing, if there's an element, or by way of an example, if you like, for the payslip platform, the roles and access and the visibility of data in the system can be set so that, for example, the employer of record would see all of the data and all of the reports for all of the EOR employees, but then access can also be given to the client firms of the employer of record, and those client firms would only see the data relevant to the employees that the EOR is employed on their behalf. So there's a number of different ways of cutting and slicing that access to the data, and certainly that's something that you want to be careful about, as Mary has said, when you're assessing the various capabilities in the marketplace.
Thank you. Okay, so we have time for another question. In an RFP, how do you know you have covered your reporting requirements thoroughly?
Well, I'll take this and I'll let Tom pop in. So first of all, one of the things is, what are your defined list of reports that you need today? That means when you're going out to RFP, have you talked to your stakeholders in finance and business and HR? Have they defined the reports they need? Is there gaps that they're not getting today? So this is a great opportunity to talk to your stakeholders and make sure you get a list. Making sure it's documented, what's on the report. If you have report samples, you can pull all that information together. And then you're giving the list of reports to your potential providers that you're looking at so that they understand this is what you're looking for and what you expect. Just putting a question on the RFP is, do you have reporting, or do you have a report writer, or how is reporting handled? Some of those questions on RFPs can just be answered as yes. They'll always be a yes. And this is the one items that I've seen from global professionals that they've moved to a new system, and you ask them, 6 months later, is there any issues? Are you happy? The feedback that you get is the reporting isn't what I thought it was. And so that's why I really recommend that you make sure you demo the system, you make sure that it is what you really want, and you define it clearly. And that is sometimes asking to talk to a solution architect that can tell you, yes, this can be done or not be done. So making sure that you're doing your due diligence up front. So Tom, feedback from any thoughts that you have that you would like to share?
Well, hopefully the best practices that I put up on the slide earlier can provide some guidance on that. I mean, really the thing in my mind that stands out is make sure that you're talking to everybody across the business. So you may have a mandate to go out and improve the reporting capability, the payroll reporting capability within the organization, but there could be other projects in play that actually align with what you're trying to achieve. So if there is perhaps a move, are people looking at ways in which they can, or is another team, the operations team, looking at a way in which they can better manage the disparate network of payroll providers? So, not really focusing on the reporting piece, but they're looking at, how can we get a better handle on this network of in-country providers that we've got? We're growing fast. We're getting to a point now where, there's too many for us to manage efficiently. Should we be outsourcing the whole thing? That's something that's going to be very relevant to your project for global reporting. So just make sure that you're aware of what's going on alongside you in the business. And if there is that move towards a sort of an outsourcing solution, it can be a painful lift. It's a big project. It can be very expensive. And there are technologies now that allow you to keep those relationships, those great relationships that you have today with your existing but disparate partner network, and technologies that you can layer over the top to bring some order and some better operational capability to manage that network and deliver all of the global reporting as well. So just keep that in mind as well, I would suggest.
Thanks, Tom. We've got a couple of minutes left, so maybe a quick answer to this question. What effort is required to pull data into payslip from multiple individual payroll providers? Do you require interface data files from vendors or accept files manually in multiple formats? Maybe this might be a bit of a long answer, but is that something that you can?
we probably can answer it I'm going to say it's very easy. So for information that comes from your existing provider, the gross to net, the payslip information, we accept it in multiple formats. It doesn't have to be integrated. You'll drop the file off. We have a share exchange between the ICP and payslip. They'll drop the file, we'll pick up the file, and then we have integration. We have integration that will pick and map it into a standard gross to net format for you, so that it doesn't matter if I'm in China, Brazil, or the US, everything will look and be the same. So it's very, very easy. We have integration for the incoming input. If you wanted to integrate from Workday into payslip to consolidate the pay run file that will go to the provider with your changes or updates for that particular month or payroll, or it can be imports can be brought into the system. Very easy. The biggest, it's not a big challenge. The standardization will be the piece that will kind of drive the reporting piece. Very easy. We have a very easy mapping implementation playbook to get you started, and it's just a matter of filling out some templates, and things go very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we can bring it to an end now, because we've only got a couple of minutes left. We do have some further questions that have been asked. So Mary and Tom, are you happy to answer these offline?
Sure.
Excellent.
And just for any of those technical questions, the last one was, veering towards the technical. Do get in touch with us, and we can, we'll lift the lid and dig a bit deeper into those requirements, and happy to provide you technical detail about the solutions we can bring to that.
Will do, Tom. Unfortunately, your line has literally just gone right at the end of the webinar, so you sounded like a Dalek at the end. So, luckily, the last minute of the webinar, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tom and Mary. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge today. And I hope everyone's enjoyed today's webinar. If people want to get in touch with Tom and Mary, as you can see, they have their email addresses there. I'm sure they're happy to link in with you on LinkedIn as well. And if you do have any questions, please, get in touch with Tom and Mary directly. I'm sure they're more than happy to answer. And I hope you join us at our next webinar. So thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.